Welcome to another day in the Matrix. Waters above crypto. It's full moon season, and I'm sending you all love and high vibrations. Over the past couple days, the market has capitulated as Bitcoin broke a key level of support. So in today's video, we're going to discuss some important factors in past cycles that determined a bottom structure for the crypto market. And also shout out to my Patreon supporters over in our Discord server for being the most incredible community. Even with these market conditions, the Wolfpack is staying productive and helping each other out during this correction. It's amazing to see the teamwork, and I'm so grateful to be a part of such an incredible community. Much love to every single one of you. I'm looking forward to hanging out with all of you guys on this Friday's live stream hangout. I also just released a special Red Pill podcast over the weekend that's available on Patreon, where I covered all the ISO 222 compliant coins. So you can check that out now over on patreon.com/watersabove if you're interested in my long-term technical analysis outlook on Stellar Lumens, XDC, IOTA, Algorand, and of course we covered XRP. So if you're new here, we do cryptocurrency technical analysis and combine it with Gematria, Numerology, and Astrology to understand these markets. Feel free to subscribe and turn on the bell notification to stay updated on when new videos come out. And make sure to give this video a like and share this channel with other conscious beings to help grow our community. And for those of you that want to learn how to do technical analysis and combine it with Gematria, you can join my Mastermind course. The link to my website can be found in the description box of this video and in the pinned comment below for access to the Mastermind course. And with that being said, let's take the red pill. So, in the recent Red Pill podcast that I put out, actually, that I was just mentioning, we went over to this exact chart that I was looking at. It's the weekly chart for Bitcoin, and it's the all-time chart going back to 2012. And with this chart, I had this green moving average up, which is the 200 simple moving average. I turned off a bunch of other moving averages just to make this chart nice and clean and easy for you all to see. And also, welcome to all the new people that have come over to my channel from other communities. If you're completely new to crypto, this is actually a really important time to be paying attention. And if you've been in crypto for a while, now you're kind of actually living through one of the big historic moments in any market cycle. So for those who are part of the Wolfpack and you're aware of how the full moon works, you probably anticipated something similar to this, at least bearish energy around this time frame. Those of you that have been around my work for a while now, you know that 5-day window surrounding any monthly moon cycle, the full moon, is when we get our pullbacks or what is called our microcycle lows. And then when it comes to those new moons is when we get those microcycle tops. So here we are. Today's the day of the full moon. It's no different. What is different, though, is we've broken structure. So this is where this chart comes into play and where we want to focus more on these larger time frames, such as the weekly chart and the 5-day chart. So I just wanted to start out here actually because during that recent Red Pill podcast, when I filmed it, Bitcoin was trading around 27 to 28K. And I looked at this exact chart. I saw the 200 simple moving average trading around 22K. And then I made a little bit of a joke how if we were to close yesterday or a couple days ago, the weekly candle, we would actually have this 200 simple move up to 22,300. And if I hover over here and you look at this little green text over there, you're going to see it's actually at 22,364. And I made that joke because 223 is the reverse skull and bones number. And also that 222, it's so close to that, and we're in the Hebrew year of 5782, which adds up to the 22, and of course we are in the year of 2022, which again is the 222. And why this is all important is because I'm about to show you an amazing connection to the C word crash that happened back in March of 2020. So there's going to be some mind-blowing information in this that should solidify a lot of the reasoning as to why this all happened at this exact time. But one other thing that I mentioned that I've shared in past content was to pay attention to this 200 simple moving average, and also the timing from peak to retesting this is very similar on every cycle. And I've shared this before. Whenever we're getting these peaks, it typically takes about 400 days to retest this green moving average. It's what happens in all past iterations of the cycle. Unfortunately, we don't have the 200 extending out before April of 2015 because it takes a while for that data to aggregate. with that being said, this is actually pretty similar timing from when we've had peak to retest, and then of course, recently, it's been about 400 or so days since this peak we got back in April, which could be considered the true market top because that's when all the cryptocurrencies, including all the altcoins, peaked out. Bitcoin and Ethereum and a couple of other coins had this second top, but that wasn't for every coin. That wasn't the whole story across the board. This was the true market cycle top, similarly to this. Okay? So one of the things that I mentioned in that, before I get into the more esoteric stuff, is I made a little bit of a joke saying that I kind of wish this week we would just have the market maker rip the Band-Aid off. And what I meant by that is to just get us down to this key level anyways, sooner than later. And the reason I wanted that to happen is because this is just something that you kind of have to let occur. You know, I would rather it happen now than wait any longer. And I'm sure any sophisticated player in this game who's been here for a while, to just get this moment out of the way sooner than later is ideal, you know, especially for those people that are a lot more emotionally reactive to all of this. So I essentially just made a joke saying, you know, the market maker should just rip the Band-Aid off now and send it down to 22K just to get it over with. And within 24 hours that came to life. Perhaps that analysis got some people prepared for that scenario, but more importantly, the reason I mention this is to help not be too emotionally reactive to these moves in the charts. Bitcoin tends to gravitate back to this 200 weekly. So for anyone who's been here for a while, you know, and this is kind of getting to you on an emotional level, just, it's going to be okay. Seriously. And we have a family here, a beautiful community of wolves that are here to help out in all regards. You know, this is a very high vibrational community that's here to help lift people's spirits up and to be focused on what really matters. And that is when we get moments like this, they're historical triggers for bottoms. And this isn't the exact bottom. There's no way to determine that. But I'm going to share a couple of pieces of data for you right now. So like I said a moment ago, we were talking about this black swan event, the C-word crash, and that happened 222 months before 9/11. So if you go from the date of 9/11, 2001, the Twin Tower ritual, and bring it over to when the World Health Organization declared the pandemic on March 11th, you actually had 222 months exactly, just like we're in the 222 year. In the Hebrew year, that adds up to 22. This is all about the master builder, master destroyer. It's that kind of energy. And it's also tied to this 96 and 69 number. We'll get into that in a moment. But if you remember back in this cycle, let me clear my throat really quickly. If you remember back in this cycle, going back over to this crash right here, March 13th was when we bottomed out. So you see, this was the Black Swan event. We had a very sharp move to the downside on March 12th, and then this actually bottomed out on this exact day, hit the bottom, came all the way down to 3,800, ricocheted back up, and closed the day green. It actually was the bottom day, but also finished bullish. Okay, now this type of move right here was unexpected to most, but if people were aware of that 222 cycle that I explained, they probably could have saw that there was an esoteric, you know, meaning behind why that all happened when it happened. And this also all tied back to event 201. So you could watch my last video that I put out. I mentioned June 13th being the day leaving 201 days left in the year. And that 201, again, tying back to that ritual where the apex predator showed us on the world stage what would happen in a global pandemic. They actually laid out the groundwork and showed you, almost like predictive programming, right? So that whole event happened. It was called event 201. Of course, June 13th happens to be 201 days left in the year, and this is all tying back to this same ritual. Okay, so even though the pandemic was declared on the 11th of March, we saw the market bottomed out on March 13th, 313. Just like yesterday was 3 months and 13 days until the end of Shemitah. So this was an amazing connection to be found here. How this all happened into this week. And it's kind of interesting now that we're seeing this all play out, especially with that 105 turning back into 15 with removing the 0 like we do with the rules of numerology, and this being exactly 15 weeks, and that 15 of course coming back to Tiger, and we are in the year of the Tiger right now, which just so happens to be landing on the Shemitah year. The year of the tiger, and the tiger being connected to Jupiter. And let me show you one other thing. You've heard that term eye of the tiger, right? Yeah, they're exposing that. They always expose stuff like that in pop culture. So we just started the 24th week of the year. And if you look up the Jupiter Zodiac logo, it's the 24. So this was, this was pretty tied in to a couple of other things. And it's amazing how this was all leading up to that June 15th date that I brought up. And we're going to we're going to review that in one moment. So this is something interesting. And let me show you another connection with this 201 and coming back to that 96. So one other thing to consider was this day of the September 26 being 96 days left in the year. And when we plug in this date, the 13th, going back to the actual start of Shemitah, we're going to have a 9-6 connection, the mirror of 69. Okay, now that 9-6 and that 6-9 are critical this year because we know Bitcoin's all-time high was 69,000. And now that it's come all the way down into the 20,000 range, this is kind of solidifying that that was the cycle top for now. And again, these cycles are going to become slightly different imprints on every iteration because the market matures, the market has more, altcoins involved, more companies, fintech and government, and everyone has their eyes on crypto right now. So that's going to, be a lot different than comparing to the 2017 cycle or the 2013 cycle, of course. But I find it interesting that on this exact date, it's that 9-6 connection. And when we look at Rosh Hashanah, the end of Shemitah coming up, it's going to be on that day leaving 96. And we know Bitcoin's all-time high was that 69,000. That 69.96 is the yin yang. It's about balance, okay? So this was perhaps another, sign of bottom around this particular week. When I say bottom has structure. Right now we're in the falling knife stage. So I'm not saying this is it. I'm not saying this is over. Please remember what I just said. And then also we know that this year was really important because connecting from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, the whole Shemitah year, we have 1 month and 19 days. This was a historic year. Just like what I said before about the number 21, well, we're entering the 21st anniversary of 9/11. 11119 is the mirror of 911. Remember, Terra Luna hit $119 before it went to zero. This is all coded in. So just quickly, the Rosh Hashanah of 21, and then we know that from 9/11 of 2001, again, another 21 connecting to this 9/11 of 2022 is 21 years. And June 13th that we just experienced was the day leaving 201 days left in the year, the 21. Okay, so this is all pretty, it's an interesting thing now that we've watched it come and go. But let me just get back to some of this important data that I want to share with you guys. So that 313 connection to March 13th being 313, we called that, that was a Friday the 13th. We could call what happened yesterday Monday the 13th. I would not be surprised if this was a similar iteration where if we look at structure, we were to see some sort of fractal repeat. And it's hard to tell how this will all play out, but if we were to just take a fractal pattern, we could go from this bigger correction date, or perhaps even this moment right here, and draw out and get kind of an idea of how this could go. I mean, within the idea of any recovery back to normal levels, I mean, it would be interesting to just see a little bit of this action, perhaps something like this. And this would almost be identical, and we would have to get over some important levels, but I could share that with you guys in a moment. So this green trend line is going to be a key place to consider, because if we go back into the all-time, if I was to remove these fibs, you're going to be able to see something pretty amazing. So all time, when you look at this, two green trend lines, it's been playing for our bottoms ever since Bitcoin launched. So ever since it was less than a penny, when we broke above this level, we actually maintained above this green trend line ever since 2015, pretty much, when we back tested it off that top cycle. Now, ever since, and I'm going to show you on the daily chart, get rid of this fractal, When we broke this trend line, boom, we just dumped below it. And if we were to have any key level for a double bottom, I would be anticipating almost identical price targets, but near the end of Shemitah, sometime around November. And that structure would look very similar to this back here. You see this moment from this dip coming back to that dip, that is identical to last Shemitah. So this cycle right here from 2014 September to 2015 September was the last cycle when Bitcoin traded during a Shemitah year, and it was the greatest time to start accumulating cryptocurrency. So I'm not emotional about this. This needed to happen. It was bound to happen. It was just the timing of it, when it would happen. It doesn't really matter as long as it's coming and how we react to it. So for me, I'm being a little bit more patient about this whole thing because I don't like to catch falling knives. I like to wait for structure. But so far, this has triggered a couple of key things that I've considered. One of which on the weekly chart, if I was to turn off all of these indicators and show you right here, on the weekly chart, we've actually gotten within the cycle top of the last structure. That's what happened back here. We hit the cycle top. When we dipped down after the end of the cycle, we did not backtest 100% to the local all-time, or to the prior all-time high. Right here, we haven't actually backtested the prior all-time high. We've never seen Bitcoin cycle and then actually start trading back into that all-time high price level. So something around that 15,000 to 17,000 is unlikely. It's possible, of course, but that would be a lot more unlikely. The way this structure has, fulfilled itself, pretty ideal. And let me turn on some of the indicators. Let me show you the weekly RSI. So you can see right here, this was the lowest the RSI got back in the 2015 cycle. And we're on the weekly chart, by the way. Bitcoin is double bottoming on that. So if we were to close this week above 22,500, which would be above the 200 simple moving average, another thing that happens, we hold it as support now. That would indicate probably this to be a historically low RSI level for Bitcoin. So another bottoming sign. When you see things like this, an extremely oversold market, that's a sign that, we've gravitated back to the 200 simple. We've hit below oversold RSI. We know the timing from prior cycle to low is within 400 days. Another check. And then we have some esoteric things to mention about that 313 connection back to the 21 with its ties to that black swan event over here, the C word crash. So let me turn on some more of these indicators and go back to that 5-day chart, something that I brought up with you guys in my last video. I just want to reiterate that. I'm going to go to another chart so it's a little bit cleaner. And then turn off some of these drawings. Boom. So on this 5-day chart, we have something pretty important to bring up. And it was something that I was also mentioning in that last video, which was seeing this 8 simple moving average cross below these 200s. So until I saw this 8 simple get below the 200 simple moving average, I was not feeling like a bottom was in place. But now that we've solidified this move and we know that tonight is the 5-day candle close, this is a sign that this 8 is going to move below that 200, and that's another bottoming cross. So whenever we see this 8 simple cross below the 200 and the 200 symbol on the 5-day chart, it's been a signal for bottom. So let me go back to past iterations of that. So you can see right here, this was the C word crash that we were just talking about. Look at that. The 8 crossed below that dark green. And then when it crossed below this light green, boom, recovery. Okay, let's go back. You could see this is the 2017 cycle when we saw the 8 simple moving average cross below not only the 200 exponential, it needed to cross under the 200 simple moving average, bottom, and then recovery. Let's go back to this cycle. We see that's the cycle top from 2013, the 8 simple crossing below the 200 and both 200s. 200 simple, solidified bottom. It was within bottoms every single time. And then we know of recovery when we see this 8 simple cross above that 55, which by the way, I coined that as the wolf cross. When we see the wolf cross followed by this 8 simple moving average crossing above both 200 moving averages, that is a sign of recovery. Just think of it in reverse. Don't get complicated by what I'm saying. Just think in reverse. When the 8 simple moving average goes below both 200s, you have bottoms. On the 5-day chart, when you see this 8 simple moving average now cross back above the 200s, you have an insane bull run. Let's go back. Crossing below, crossing above. You see when it crossed above, this happened pretty violently actually. It just went up into what is called an automatic rally. Okay, so now we're living through that. You can see right here, we cross below, then when we cross above, recovery. So that's a cheat code, guys. Like if you could take away any piece of valuable information from this as non-technical analysis type people, you know, this will be a big cheat code for everyone. We're just getting started on forming what is called the bottom, but we do have a couple things to consider. We usually close the weekly within 1 week to 2 weeks above the 200 simple moving average, which right now is sitting at 22,300. That would be a key sign. We know that at the end of Shemitah is when things get, you know, pretty radical. But since we've done this move already just now, it is very similar to kind of like this premature cycle dump that we got that had this V-shaped recovery back in the C-word crash. So I would love to know some of your thoughts on this because I'm trying to do different content. I'm not going to give you guys what you're typically getting from everyone else. I'm doing something unique. This is my analysis. It's my way of analyzing this market in the long term. I'm personally just going to wait to see how this weekly close goes, how some of this, like, you know, energy moves into the upcoming new moon, which the new moon is going to be at the end of this month. And then perhaps that could give me some more signs of, you know, some structure here. But right now, this isn't structure. This is just straight line. So what I brought up in the 15th connection, I was going to reiterate that really quickly for you guys. That 103 days, just like Mercury gives us that 103 in Gematria, and this is going to be on a Wednesday, miércoles, the day of Mercury. So we're getting that 103 connection to the end of Shemitah. And I just showed you how important it is to connect the date that we're experiencing to either the start or the end of the Shemitah, whatever Rosh Hashanah is in both directions, because time is not linear. Time is cyclical and it rings out. And it's really beautiful when you look at time, kind of the way that Jason over Archaics brought it up. He's talked about it as a ripple effect. And I completely agree. It's something that I brought up actually on a decode that I did for the 3T Warrior Academy, this ripple effect and how it has everything to do with the way time actually works. And when I started analyzing everything in both directions and then bringing it back to other dates, that's basically been my work since the beginning. We start to make some confluence and it makes a lot more sense. And one thing I will also mention for you guys, if you wanted some study work on the side, this cycle that we're experiencing right now is so similar to the dot-com bubble. It is so similar. And one of the things that I've noticed is even when the stock market got a little bit of relief last week, like 2 weeks ago, it was not hitting the crypto market. The crypto market usually is moving in sync with the indices, and it did not over the past month pretty much. Over the past 2 months, it hasn't. And that's a sign that was very similar to the dot-com bubble, where the blue chip, you know, kind of like important stuff that actually was a real use case and working technology, when it started to correct, it didn't correct nearly as violently as those dot-com, you know, fraudulent stocks. So we're seeing something like that happen with the crypto market today, where all of these other 20,000 cryptocurrencies are just slowly being washed out. There's all these black swan events, like what just happened with Celsius, which I haven't had the time to really deep dive into, but we know what just happened with Terra Luna. And all of these things are very, very similar to the dot-com bubble. So as a sophisticated, non-emotional, true investor, go do your homework, study the March, 1999 bubble. 1998 to that 1999 and moving into 2000, look at like Amazon charts, look at some of the stuff that was going on back there, and then compare it to like the Dow Jones, compare it to the S&P, and then see the huge deviation with the NASDAQ, which was mostly the tech sector. But all those IPOs and things that were going live leading up into that 1999-2000 boom and bust cycle, it was fascinating to study. So I think it would be helpful for you guys, especially those of you that are out there that are heavily exposed to crypto and you're unsure of what's happening. You know, this is a cycle that's played itself out before. And of course, that was during a Shemitah, the dot-com bubble, which led to 9/11, which I've brought up multiple times here. I even brought up that idea in a couple videos ago, talking about the year of the moon key. And it was because of what was going on in the world stage with another fraudulent virus. But anyways, this is definitely something to consider, how that 1999 cycle went. And I believe you guys are going to find a lot of value out of studying that. So with tomorrow, we definitely can be considering, some energy, but it's the entire week. Once we have a big washout like this, it's going to bring a lot of negativity and fear into the retail sector of the market. And this is kind of just something that we have to let all play out. One thing to bring up, this upcoming Saturday, which is the day of Saturn, is going to have that 21 date numerology. And we know Saturn is tied to Bitcoin in multiple ways. We have Satoshi Nakamoto is Saturn, and then 21 million Bitcoin in supply. Again, tying all back to Saturn with that 21. You could see that right there in Chaldean. So I'm interested into seeing how this Saturday is going to go, especially with that 66 date numerology, that 169 again, and the 196. So we're getting that 6996 connection, and the 1 in front of it kind of adds emphasis. It like empowers the number. So yeah, this Saturday is, definitely going to be something to look out for. So I would say if you wanted to keep that on your calendar as a potential day for crypto to dance around, because the stock market's going to be closed that day. It's just going to be crypto. But we saw the volatility kick in last weekend. I would not be surprised if it's similarly to March of 2020 when the COVID crash happened. We saw the retail market, dance around quite a bit every weekend around that crash. It's just a lot of, players trying to, either add to positions to prevent getting liquidated, or they're getting liquidated and they're trying to catch up trade. It's just a lot of that energy going on. And I definitely recommend don't be one of those people. Step away right now if you're somebody who's not used to this type of volatility. For those of you that are used to this volatility, it's just another day in the matrix. So I shared that 5-day analysis with you, and I believe that is very, very important. I believe that's something that could really help people out. And while we're in this kind of energy right now, we can't really do too much with the other coins. One thing I can say is with the weekly chart, 200 for Ethereum, that was nice to see a backtest of that 200 simple. Holding that level would be very, very similar to the situation with Bitcoin. If Bitcoin holds the 200 simple moving average on the weekly, I anticipate Ethereum will as well. And if those two coins are holding it, everything else is going to kind of, have a little bit of recovery. And in this moment, we could actually see 15% green candles for random altcoins just out of nowhere right now, because we had such a flush out, and it does not take a lot of liquidity to move these coins up the slightest. Just off of this wick low right here on Ethereum, within 1 week, we still closed the following green candle red, but off the wick, it was 35% up. Okay, so this is a ton of volatility, and I'm sure volume is actually showing itself now, like if we were to look at the daily. Oh yeah, so you see this daily volume surge? We're finally getting volume kicking in. And it's been like, crickets over here in the crypto market ever since probably like the last 300 days. And now we're starting to see volume pump up again. So that's a good sign. That's a sign of like there's a handing off of the guard. The people who have weak hands that are not here for the long term, they've gotten out. And now it's just stronger and stronger and stronger investors. And that's kind of what we all want as people who are here following this work that I'm sharing. I know who you guys are, because you know the type of work that I share. It's not designed for the moon boys. It's not designed for people who are in the cult of crypto. It's exposing blockchain technology, and it's exposing what's really going on here. And to be able to kind of step away from that emotional aspect of being an investor, to actually have some rhyme and reason for what's going on here, because we have that application of Gematria Numerology and Astrology. So I'm actually just going to leave this video at this, because I need to give this time, let these charts kind of settle themselves out. I'm keeping my eye on that 200 weekly moving average. And then in the meantime, I do have preparation for next week's Red Pill podcast. I'm probably going to be covering a couple of the coins that I was not able to cover last week. I definitely wanted to get into Quant and HBAR and potentially even Cardano, because those are part of the conversation around ISO 222. So if you guys are interested in that, definitely let me know in the comments section. Let's let this week play itself out. Remember, I told you the 5-day chart we want to keep an eye on. The weekly chart, 200 simple moving average, keep an eye on. Everything else is just noise. Whatever's going on in this market right now, it's going to be focused on getting people's energy through their emotion. Don't let this market take your energy. It's going to be okay. Over here, Jordan, Waters Above, loves you. I'm appreciative of you guys over here. staying strong, staying positive, but more importantly, taking moments like this and taking note of them and using them as an educational piece for your overall investment thesis. Those of you that take moments like this that seem negative and you actually do something about it, you take focused action, you are going to be the long-term winner in this whole game, because you're not here for the sprint. You're here for that slow, perpetual growth. And that right there is where the true power is in all takes of life, no matter what it is you're doing, whether starting a business or being an investor or a coach or anything. It's those who have a nice, solid, fundamental basis that are able to actually grow at the proper rate and a sustainable rate over time. So it's beautiful to have these moments in the market and to experience them all together as sophisticated investors. And I appreciate every single one of you. Wishing you a beautiful rest of your day. I'll catch you all Friday on this week's live stream hangout. Much love.